have one life. It's time to live and be yourself tonight. You gotta feel it. You just have one life. It's time to live and dance into the light. Your life is beautiful. You just have one life. It's time to live and free yourself tonight. You gotta feel it. You just have one life. It's time to live and dance into the light. Your life is beautiful. 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 Life is
Hello, everyone. Welcome. You've tuned into the Monica Brant Show, and I am your host, Monica Brant. I am so excited about my guest this evening. She is a superstar in multiple industries. She's a WWE Hall of Fame, 8-time WWE champion. She was one of wrestling's biggest superstars. She is a fitness icon, one of the original fitness modeling icons. She has over 100 covers. She's a cover model. She is a wife and a mother of 2, and she is one of my longtime friends. So please tune in and have your ears open wide for all the greatness, Miss Trish Stratus.
Tonight, you gotta feel it. You just have one life. It's time to live and dance into the light. Your life is beautiful.
What your career has expanded into is just remarkable. I mean, not that, you don't doubt, but it's just cool when I think back of, doing photo shoots and kind of showing up at different appearances with you. And here you are, like years later, with this tremendous career. And of course, I can't wait to dive into all of the different pieces of it.
Well, I mean, it is cool to look back at where there's just this brand new industry and we're just doing this fitness thing that's just brand new and no one else is doing it yet. And then we were able to then parlay it into, success and what we're doing today and still continuing, spreading the same message. So it's kind of cool to see that, but kind of like where are they now kind of a thing where you look back at some of the girls and, kind of see where everyone landed. It's kind of cool.
I agree. I like that. The where are they now? And, really that's what this whole show has been about for me. Back when COVID kind of hit the world and everyone was in kind of this lockdown mode and we're all stuck at home. I decided I wanted to have some conversations with people from the industry and find out what are the people doing, how is everyone handling the lockdown? What's going on in their world? So this is really what my show stemmed from. And instead of just, calling, I'm like, well, let's make this fun because I know there's a lot of fans out there and people that have admired the industry for a long time and used it for their own inspiration. So it's been a really fun treat, I guess, for me, as well as it's broadened my me, because usually I'm the one being interviewed as opposed to the interviewee. So I've had to really kind of figure out how to do that host part, and it's
like evolve. And we want to do is constantly evolve, and we get these challenges and to kind of like do something that you're sort of uncomfortable with or unfamiliar with, and then just to get into something is always a good thing.
Absolutely. So let's kind of go back to 2020 and 2021, obviously now, but what was 2020 like for you guys and into now? I know you're up in Canada, so what is that? What was the year like for you last year?
It was actually a nice break. People talk about the reset that happened. And for me personally, you have to be careful to say it was a great year. It certainly was not. There was a lot of terrible things that happened in the world, of course. But for me personally, I tried to basically, take lemons and turn it into lemonade and kind of look at it like, what can we do with this time? And because time is so precious nowadays, when you go, and when you have a family, kids, when they say, they're not going to be like, it goes by so fast and they'll not be this young ever again. And it's so true. It goes by so fast. So gosh, I felt so blessed this year to be able to just be with them, it started off, let's see, so in March of last year, we had actually taken a spring break trip. We had gone to Florida. And we, it was like before we left, we'd heard like the buzz, like kind of like, oh, and people were calling other people who were families who were leaving. They were saying, are you actually going to go take this trip? Because a lot of people were saying not to go. And I was like, we had dealt with a lot of stuff. My aunt had just passed away. We had a really heavy month. And so we needed a change of pace and change of environment for the kids and everything. So we decided to take the trip. We headed down south, and I remember us being by the pool and being like, kind of looking at our phones, going, "Ooh, school's not coming back," and then I remember that. I think the famous turning point for a lot of people was when the NBA canceled the season. People were like, oh, "Okay, this is serious. Some stuff's going to happen now." Right. We were talking to our family back in Toronto, and it was freezing. There was no one around. No one can go anywhere. And so I was just like, and I'm looking out the window at the kids' pool, 90 degrees weather. I'm like, we're going to stay here for a bit. So we basically stayed in Florida as long as the government, they weren't allowing Canadians to get insured anymore. So until the insurance was being cut off, we decided to head back to Canada, but we did not want to go with this max exodus of people leaving the States to head to Canada. So we decided to take an impromptu road trip with 5 people and 2 toddlers. And it was crazy. I probably would never do it on paper, but it was like such a great time, just to be in that experience and try the hotels and be on the road with the kids. It was amazing. We had such a great time with them. And then we came back, and it was homeschooling. So we did homeschooling for those few months, and then we had the summer, and then we went back to homeschooling. So it's been, I've loved it. I love homeschooling. I love coming up with crafts and activities, and I'm a very crafty person. So I find like little agendas for my family to do, which is kind of cute. So it's been nice. And honestly, I feel like I've been going I'm sure you're the same. I think we've been going for 2 decades, for 20 years straight. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of nice to not have to, okay, number one, it was nice to not have something, no travel coming up or some project coming up. And 2, for the first time ever, I got to sit and watch Netflix and have a bag of chips if I want to, because there's nothing on the horizon coming up. So I was like, oh, I'm eating like a normal person, So that was fun. It was just a complete different pace, and I really enjoyed it. It was great. It was good.
Well, it's awesome.
Turn back and maybe get back to getting on the road again, though.
Yeah. Now it's like, okay, let's go back now and do a little bit. Okay, that was fun and all. I agree. I think there's I'll just say this, everyone that I've spoken to, and this is, so now the show's been going on a year this month. I think I'm right around a year. So wow. Everyone I've spoken to, and it's usually one show a week, has had that same kind of concept that you've said, turning lemons into lemonade, making the best of it. And for so many times you hear people kind of critique our fitness and bodybuilding industry, there's a lot of negativity, or there's, a lot of down and negative stuff about the people. But honestly, I feel like everyone has, really stood out and said, no, this has been a great opportunity to reconnect, to kind of dive into some new things, or take that break like they needed, or, do something in their home.
Yeah. Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So much interior designing has happened in the home, which is great too. There's never time to do stuff like that. So yeah, no, it is nice to see people kind of looking at it as a positive. I mean, let's put it this way, finding the silver linings is what.
Yeah. And maybe that's what makes people, I guess everyone I've spoken to has, had a tremendous career from the industry and been able to extend the industry for them, or it's been, like you, they've kind of gone into another area of their career, which has been, successful too. So it could be that the type of people, are all successful and all have that positive and all have that kind of ambition to make the most of whatever it is. So yeah,
for sure.
That's awesome. And you get to spend that time with your kids and make some really cool memories. And just like you said, I bet you could probably have written a very cool journal about your travel, being in Florida and then traveling back, like you said, and, have something journal for your kids when they're older.
I would never taken that trip. I would have said, no, you know what? They're too young. 19 hours in the car is ridiculous. We're not going to throw ourselves in a van. We're not going to do that to them. But it's like, it was such a positive. It was a wonderful and such an experience. And especially someone who's been on the road for 20 years as well, it was nice to do it with them and experience the hotel life with them. And it was great.
It's exciting. Kids always think that, a lot of kids think that the hotels are exciting, right? They're like,
of course.
New hotel.
On the bed and seeing the pools. Well, not that those were open, but it's like seeing this new place that was their home for the day or whatever was kind of cool.
So let's go back a little bit. And I definitely want to obviously go back to kind of how you were raised and where you were raised, because I don't really know a lot about that. So I'd like to know, take me and the viewers back to Trish as a teenager and in your, into your 20s. Who were you and how were you raised?
Well, I grew up in a neighborhood south of Toronto, just around Toronto, in a suburb in Toronto. And I have a sister who was 11 months younger than me. So it was the two of us, and very heavily influenced by my mom. Her fitness and her yoga was a big thing in her life. So that was, transferred over to me. I remember she'd put on these old school yoga records and she'd prop up the back of the record and for the pose guide on the back. So I have very fond memories of my first, namaste moments with my mom. So, and then she was a runner. So I would try and she would take me on, she would do her run. I remember she would do her run and then she'd go, okay. And she'd kind of have a little route on the end that I would get to take. And it's she's like, I gotta do my own stuff first, kid, No, let me do my real workout and then I'll do one with you. And then I would run with her. So I kind of got into the fitness from that. I was a soccer athlete. I played up until I was 21 years old. So I was pretty high level, rep level soccer. So that was what I played for many years. And then I played for my varsity team. I played field hockey in university.
Wow. So
always a jock, always into sports, always doing it. Never had done any bodybuilding or anything like that. It wasn't until our world opened up where I was actually my York University, which I attended in Toronto, went on strike. The professors went on strike. And we were just waiting for school to come back in session. And during that time, I decided to take a job. So I thought, let me find a job that makes sense for me. So I decided to go to a gym so that I could train for free. I was smart, right?
Yeah. Yep.
I worked at this gym and I was working at the front desk. And then a gentleman came in and basically told me about Bob Kennedy. And he said, he's starting this fitness line. And it was for, what was it called? What was it? Do you remember?
Are you talking about the supplement line?
No, it was actually the clothing line they did.
Oh, yeah. I do remember that. But I'm spacing on the name right now, but I know what you're talking about.
I remember that. So he said, we were looking for models. And I was like, oh, I've never modeled. And I was really I was a total tomboy. The idea of modeling was so girly girl to me. And I was just not up my alley. And because I was a pre-med student, so I was biology, kinesiology, and my goal was to go to med school. So to do extracurricular stuff that didn't add towards my journey of my med school journey did make sense to me. So I never really pursued anything like that. I remember even I got asked to be in Miss Teen Canada, but it didn't make sense. It was not on my path. I was it's kind of not part of my journey right now, right? I'll just go be the candy striper at the hospital instead. The same.
Hey, they had calendars too,
Yeah, you know what? I didn't do that actually. I think I've done a calendar in a nurse's uniform before, but anyway, that's a different story. So yeah, then he basically said, I'll bring you to, as you know, Oxygen Muscle Mag was headquartered just north of Toronto. It was literally about maybe 20 minutes from where I lived. So I got the chance to first meet Robert Kennedy. So I went in, met Robert Kennedy, and he's like, great. He goes, do you have any pictures? Can we, have you done any work? I was like, oh, this is me and my mom. I don't know. So he said, okay, well, let's do a test shoot. He introduced me to Jan Tana for the first time. Went down to because Muscle Mag headquarters was, if you remember, the offices were on the top and downstairs was the store that they had, the Muscle Mag store. And so he took me downstairs. He got me a couple bikinis off the rack and he got me my Jan Tana and that crazy sponge brush. And I was like, okay, go slap that on and we'll see you in a couple of days. I was like, okay.
What year was that?
Oh my gosh. I was in 1997 probably, or maybe 96 by the time. And so then I was at home looking through magazines and I was, and by the way, I was looking at magazines before this started. I was looking at Monica. I was looking at Amy Fadley and I was looking at Marla Duncan. And those were the ones I was looking at. I was looking at the pose. I was like, how do I get okay, there it is, this kid posing in front of my mirror. It was so funny. And yeah, then I went to my first shoot and I don't know, I don't want to say nailed it, but
Pretty much. You had the twist already down, and you had the glutes and the body.
It's funny because they talk about Tyra Banks, as she says smizing. I'm telling you, Bob has been saying smizing for like way before Tyra, for sure. Like he used to say, he goes, you got to smile with your eyes. He didn't call it smizing. So Tyra coined that for sure. But he would say smile with your eyes. And that was like the main thing. He would always say there's so much in the eyes. And that was like a really important thing for him. He used to kind of work with us to get there, if you remember. And so, yeah, that was my first test shoot. And then from there, he said, okay, well, I think let's work on this. He goes, so he gave me a trainer. He assigned a trainer to me, introduced me to Scott Abel. Do you remember that name, Scott Abel?
Yeah, yes, I do.
And then basically I ate, slept, and trained for 3 months. And it was crazy because, like, as I said, I'm always very hyper-focused in everything I do. And so for me to go into med school, that's why I didn't look at anything that wasn't related to the path of going to med school. So this happened at a time where I swear, like, the universe was like, I'm just going to put this on hold so you can see if this is what is for you. I mean, I would have never been able to eat, sleep, and train like that. As you know, the schedule is so crazy, and eating every 3 hours and training every day and maybe twice a day with my university schedule would have been too crazy. And so everything was on hold. So basically as my professor's on hold, I'm here cultivating a little fitness modeling career.
Yeah.
There was a point where, boom, I went to my first shoot. He took me down to South Beach, Miami. I did a shoot with, it was with Corey Nadine. And I can't remember the other one who was with us. There was another girl who wasn't really a fitness girl. She was more sort of a skinnier model looking girl, very beautiful girl. I can't remember her name now, but I remember Corey Nadine because she was kind of like kind of the it girl at the time, kind of all over the place, very racy. Almost like, I'm like, that's very racy. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Beautiful. And it was cool to kind of watch them do their work as well. So then I had to do my first photo shoot, and you know, as you probably went on those trips too, he'd do the South Beach Miami trip, and there was that little breakfast spot that he always used to like, and he'd show us Versace's house, and it was like such a cool trip. And then, yeah, that was my very first shoot turned into my first cover. He sort of sat with me and contracted me. So I was kind of part of the Muscle Mag team at that point. And so, you know, I suddenly had a fitness modeling career. University came back into session, and I was suddenly, you know, starting to do these appearances and photo shoots. And I was trying to juggle the two things, you know, trying to do school and trying to do that. I couldn't do both. And it just basically, it was actually my boyfriend at the time, but he's my husband, Ron. He said to me,
wait, I'm sorry, say that again. Your husband is your husband. I mean, your husband was your boyfriend back then.
Yeah. So
y'all have been together a long time.
8 years next month.
Okay, we'll come back and talk about that. Finish your thoughts, because I wanted to talk to you about your marriage.
So Ron said, he goes, I don't know. I feel like you should just I think I was 22 at the time or something. He said, you should just when are you going to be 22 again? I mean, you know, you can always go back to university. This is your time. And I was like, all right, let's do it. So I had his support, and Mom was on board as well. And so, yeah, we decided to move forward with it. And so I kind of became a full-time fitness model for a couple of years. And that was when we met. That was the beginning of our friendship back in the day.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That is so awesome. Just hearing the transition, and I'm picturing myself in those years, right? Because I think my first fitness competition was in 91, and then my first cover came in 94 with Muscle and Fitness. And then, of course, I was introduced right away to Robert Kennedy in 95. The first year I kind of got into and remember Jim? Do you remember Jim Mentler?
Oh, yes.
So Jim brought me my first year in 95 to the, is it 95? Oh gosh, I'm spacing on it now. Yeah, it had to have been 95 to the Arnold Classic. And he shot me with Marla Duncan and, you know, the whole bodybuilder. Remember, he used to go and he'd have the room set up. And he flew me out there so that he could shoot me. And it was just like this, or maybe that was 96. That might've been 96. But anyways, it's just I'm picturing all of these memories from there of my own. And then, you know, just hearing where yours were, because you were that same timing, right? You were Canadian and I was US, and we kind of met, you know, would see each other here or there. And then it was you're off doing your thing and I was off doing my thing. But, you know, we were there. Aww.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that.
Yes. Super fun. I mean, it's so fun to just think back on all of this. And, you know, we were the originals, really.
I know.
And
I did an article once, and reading it back, someone, and I should pull it for you to show you, but they called us, like they made us like the equivalent of, like, you think of the supermodels back in the day where you had Cindy Crawford and Naomi Campbell and those gals who were like the supermodels, because it was a brand new thing. They were like, there was models and then there was the supermodels, right? And for us, there actually wasn't any models. There was literally just us, the handful of us.
Yeah, there was a handful. You're right.
You know, it was a brand new industry. If you think about it, I remember, because working at the gym and getting into fitness and bodybuilding, started doing my own little bodybuilding at that time. Look at the magazines. There really wasn't any body types that I felt I could relate to. I was like, oh, that's too big. I don't know if I could get there. Like, it didn't, I liked an athletic body because I knew I had an athletic body and I could relate to that, but it was just obviously not quite achievable for the average person. And then, you know, starting to see your body and then seeing Marla and then seeing Amy. And I was like, okay, that now I can relate to that. And I think that's achievable. And then just in being able to, like, you know, even studying biology, kinesiology. So like taking the theory I learned in school and then applying it to my body was so fascinating to me, to be like, I literally can build a superheroine body. Like, it felt like I was like,
right?
V-taper, right? Bob would always talk about the V-taper, you know, get that the V-taper girl, get that tiny waist, you know, and working on the lats and things like that. But like watching your body change into this thing, you know, and just having a control of your body was so amazing. And then watching this industry just beginning, just percolating. And then you know, Bob really, remember, he coined the term like fitness model. He said this is a fit body that's sort of a little more relatable and achievable. And, you know, people could now like look at this and actually have goals and say, I can do this. And it was, and it's a lifestyle too. And it was a lifestyle that we were portraying. And it was just such a special time. Like, we were so lucky to be at the beginning when it was just like a few of us doing our thing, and all those shoots around together and all those opportunities and autograph signings and covers. And oh my gosh, so amazing.
He really did a lot for our industry, right? Like, I mean, because up to that point it was just the female bodybuilders, and, you know, he had a vision, and, you know, I know some of the other little magazines, some of the magazines kind of pulled us in here and there, but, you know, Bob really had such a heart for it, and he really did a lot to help all of us too. Because I remember the first time I met Bob, I want to say it had to been 95, maybe it was 96. I'm just basing on which year it was, but it seems like there was a show in, and I thought it was the Olympia, but it was in, and maybe it wasn't the Olympia, but it was, oh gosh, it was a big show, and he had brought me in and he bought me 8x10s from Alex Ardenti.
Right.
I should ask Alex what year that was, if he can remember. Because he made 2 8x10s for me to sign, and he set me up in a booth, and I don't remember if there was anyone else there, maybe a male bodybuilder, and maybe it was a different show, but I want to say it was there in LA, and I feel like I was the only one there maybe, and he had kind of told me, you know, what to wear, and he had these 8x10s for me to sell and sign, and he had pins for me, and it was kind of my first real job. I want to say real opportunity to do that, and to, you know, have someone help me. So
well, I remember like him telling me, like, he's like, okay, like, and I was lucky, he literally lived 20 minutes from me, so he became my mentor. Like, even after when I started wrestling, I'd go see him at least once a month. We'd have for lunch, and he would just be like, you know, he would just encourage me, and I'd show him. He didn't get the whole wrestling thing or the yoga thing. When I did the yoga thing, he was like, I just don't get it. And it was funny because I actually had to, I did a photo shoot with Oxygen magazine, and actually he walked in as I was doing a yoga sequence and doing like a handstand or a headstand or something. And he was like, watching you in your body move and like the mechanics of your body, goes, I understand and I like it. And that's when he put me on the cover to introduce yoga into Oxygen magazine, and it became like sort of a thing. But he was like, I'm not, he thought it was all granola crunchy and, you know, that kind of thing.
He hadn't been exposed to it with someone like you. And he was so old school bodybuilder, right?
So old school for sure. Like chicken broccoli, done. That's what
right. I just remember Bobby.
He sat me down one day and he's like, okay. And I remember he showed me this magazine, and it was inside the magazine. It had a full page ad. As you know, we all had these big full page ads with our 8x10s. He took the pictures from the photo shoots and stuck them on there. And then he told me, go get obviously before, but go get a PO box. So I got my first PO box. I registered my business in, 1999 was the first time I registered officially Stratus Enterprises with an official business. And then I went into business, and he taught me how to be an entrepreneur. I learned how to, manage money. money, how to do my own bookings, do my own marketing. And it's just like, he gave me so many tools that like I still use today. Like there's a lot of the things that I must, you know, so this, and to be honest, I still have a database of people that we still send, you know, my current merchandise to, and they're still buying from me. These are my fans for 20 years from my fitness days.
Wow.
And it's unbelievable. And that's all thanks to Bob sort of introduced me to that world, and knowing that it was like, when you do this, you know, you can do these things. And, you know, and also just telling me, like, I realized like when he showed me that, I thought, wow, he's giving us these opportunities to be in a magazine, which is cool. But like, what can we do with it? Can we do more with it? And okay, yes, we can be an entrepreneur. We can do that kind of, there's that avenue. But also we have a voice now, right? Like I thought, oh gosh, I'm on the cover of a magazine. Let me use my voice now. And so then I would contact some of these sports shows in Toronto that luckily were airing across Canada. But, and you know, one of them was Off the Record. And that's how my segue happened into wrestling, actually. Was, you know, he had said, I remember him saying, he's like, I'm so proud of you. Cause I was like, so I booked myself on this show, and he's like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you. And he loved that we were like taking this thing that he gave us, but doing stuff with it and really like turning it into like something that could be sustainable for a long time.
Right.
So, yeah, Off the Record was one of the first sports shows I appeared on.
Oh, wow.
And then from there, the fans from wrestling, like kind of like there was like that crossover, and we can get into that story in a second. But that was basically the turning point for me to go into the world of wrestling at that point.
Well, let's come back to that. I want to find out about Ron, because obviously he's a big part of probably the history. And I think that's so cool to think that he was there with you in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And he was there watching you grow, involved in everything, probably helping you talk about which things that, you know, what to do, what not to do, kind of lead me through what that was like, and how long were you guys dating before you got married, and, you know, kind of where were you in your career once y'all got married?
So Ron and I actually met at, so I grew up, I had me and my sister 11 months apart. We have twin boy cousins. I say twin brother cousins because they're the same age. We have two cousins. One's her age, one's my age. And so we'd always have our birthday, and on top of that, our birthdays were the same. Like the boy cousin and I were the same birthday, and the other one and my sister were the same birthday. So crazy. So we would have our birthdays together. And so I have pictures from my 8th birthday party that have, I think it's like at a McDonald's, and I have Ron on the boys' side and then me on my side, because Ron went to elementary school with my cousins. So I've known Ron since I was a kid. I grew up with him. I was that tomboy who was like, always like, can I please play with you guys? Can I do the wrestling with you guys? Can I do like play baseball with you guys? Like I wanted to play with the boys so badly. And so I've known them. That's how long I've known him. So then he moved up to the area I was living in. I saw him in grade 8 on a school bus. Oh, he's like, aren't you George James's cousin? I was like, yeah, you're Ron. Ron, and we called him is physical, or we call him physical. I was like, aren't you? And we sing that Olivia Newton-John song to him, but that's a story.
Let's get physical.
I like that. And so we kind of connected, like, oh, we lived in the same town. That's cool. Welcome to my town and whatever. And then he went to high school in the same high school that my sister went to. They were really good friends. And then I transferred to that school in grade 11. And so from grade 11, we were best friends, 11, 12. And we even went into 13, because back in the day, you'd have to go to grade 13 to go to university in Ontario. And best friends. And at 17, we decided to do the crossover. And it was like, we just called each other, suddenly started calling each other boyfriend and girlfriend. And, so,
suddenly.
Yeah.
Did y'all ever, back in the day, you guys ever ask people to go around?
No, I think that's an American thing.
Is that? I don't know. I was like, I remember, junior high or whatever, boys and girls would go around, not, you're too young to date. We would go, we're going around.
That's funny. No, I think that's we call it we would go out. We were going out with, and as opposed to going out, out with my Canadian accent. That's
out. Yes.
Really, right, to compare the differences in Canadian and US things. But
all of a sudden y'all decide y'all are a thing, an item. Yeah. And how old were you again?
17 years old. So we were just finishing up high school, and then we had then I went to university, and he was so supportive, because I was like, when I say like nerd, like I was just like, I was playing field hockey in the mornings. I was at school till the end of classes. Then I'd stay at the library and study like late at night. I was just like, he just dealt with it. Like, he's like, cool. You know what I mean? Like, and he did that, like, you do you thing. even back then, and he was, his dad was in the construction business, and he wanted to, we always knew as a couple, he wanted to establish himself in his business, not be his father's son, known as his father's son. He wanted to be on in the business. And I wanted to establish myself. I wanted to go to med school. That was my goal. So we had that time we were together. We had that focus where we started living together at 21. I think we started living together at 21. So we moved in together at 21. And then he was with me when this fitness journey began, and he was like, pursue it. And was with me when he was there eating the crappy food when I wasn't.
Aww.
Oh man, it's okay. He's like, but he was, he got it, or he would eat it in front of me at least, that kind of thing. Like he was very supportive, knowing I was doing my late night. Yeah, exactly. My late night training sessions. Gosh, I was, when I talk about juggling back in the day, like, I was going to school. I was doing the fitness modeling. So I was doing that schedule of the training and whatever. I was working at like a staple, office staple or Staples kind of, you guys have Staples, right?
Mm-hmm.
Staples kind of store. So I'd work there after school. Then on the weekends, I was bartending. So I'd bartend till the morning, the bars would close. Then I would, on my way home from the bar, I used to go train. I used to go train at a 24-hour gym from 3 till 5 in the morning, because for me, I'd rather, like, I'm kind of a night person. So for me, I would train from after the bar, which I don't drink. So that was how that worked. I would train, and then I would sleep most of my day and wake up around 11 in the afternoon and start my day that way. And I would have all my classes start from then on. And that was my schedule for a long time. So I was used to having a really crazy schedule, and he was so great. Just like, yeah, do your thing, whatever you got to do, babes, and that's kind of how it was. So, and at the same time, along all this, he was also a wrestling fan. So we would go to wrestling matches together, and Maple Leaf Gardens is an arena that wrestling was a big hot spot back in the day when we were kids. So we also went to Maple Leaf Gardens as kids together. So, to transition to wrestling, he was totally along for that ride as well. So it's pretty.
Wow. So what was his, was he in construction as well, or was he doing something else? I know you said he wanted to establish himself separate from his dad. Was he also in construction though?
In construction, but separate from his dad is not just like his dad's son. You know what I mean? He was established as a separate entity and his own boss on his job sites and things like that. So I was really proud of him. He really excelled in that. And he really wanted to focus on that. But yeah, and it's funny because sometimes I tell people, I'm like, oh, he's a builder, and people would always automatically assume he's a bodybuilder, and I'm like, oh no, we're totally like, he's a builder, like
not that kind of builder. Wow. Now, what was his journey in like just health and fitness? I don't want to say bodybuilding or fitness, but was he into working out? Did y'all have that in common?
He wasn't ever like a gym guy. Like he's actually in the last, probably in his later years, went as kind of like at some point we kind of get older and we go, yeah, we need to sort of take care of this,
Yeah.
So, but our thing is we go for walks. We would love it. We would just, go for hours, long walks together. And especially me on the road, when I started wrestling, that was like our thing, was be able to, because I was on the road 4 days a week, every week. So when we were together, it was like super concentrated time. So we'd go on these like amazing hikes and just like, journey all over the place and drive to different, areas in Toronto and hike and stuff like that. And then when I opened my yoga studio, he got into yoga during those years when we had the yoga studio. So.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Y'all have done so much together. Now, you have 2 children.
Yep.
And their ages again are.
So Max is 7 and Maddie's 4 years old.
Aw, good ages, right?
Like the best. And this age is like they're transitioning out of like that baby thing, and they're kind of like becoming their own person. So I'm like it's just, I feel so blessed to be present, during this time when I can actually see these transitions that are happening, and and they act like little. I'm like, oh, you're like an actual human being now, okay?
They have an opinion and they can talk and share and ask for things or say no or yes. And
during the luckily during the pandemic, I think as they get as they're older, they're suffering because they're not seeing their kids, and they're but because they're so young, they didn't really have a social life, so to speak, before.
Yeah.
So they don't really miss what they never had in that sense, and so they're just enjoying. Like that's why I try to I'm like, I got the crafts lined up on the weekend. I make sure we are busy. Like we go out for walks, we do like all kinds of things. So I just keep us busy, and they haven't really noticed it. They've said things like, oh, I want to play date with so and so. I bet the coronavirus, they'll say, and they get it, but they're not like suffering, which is great to see.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is your husband, Ron, is he still involved in any other business, or does he work with you on your business? And because it sounds like you have so much going on. So where does he fall in with being help or not help, or having his own thing versus being, I guess, with you, working with your business?
Well, back in the day when I had when I started the fan mail business, as we called it, the fan mail
right, which was big.
I was, right? And he would help me with that. And especially when I started, because then I crossed over to wrestling about 2 years later. So I was full time on the road. So he was so great. He'd come home and we would just do it together. It'd be like a fun activity. And we'd be like, okay, we got to do it this weekend, and so we'd get it out there. And you think about those times you packaged all the things and going to the post office and doing everything on your own. And so
I did. I know. I would have loved to have someone that was actually interested in being involved to see what they could. I think that's the cool part with what you guys have done together, because, obviously you're very successful. You would have done a lot on your own, but having that support is such a beautiful piece of your history, and having been able to build this from the ground up together. How unique.
Yeah.
How unique.
So special.
It is.
Yeah. And then transitioning into I decided at one point we'll get into we'll go chronologically, but to go ahead for a second, we'll talk about my yoga studio, but I had a yoga studio. And so when I decided that was my next journey was to build this yoga studio, basically to spread the word, spread the word of yoga. He built it. So he built, so we worked together.
Oh, because he's a builder.
So we always used to say, because we would build a lot of homes. We have a lot of properties, and we've been in real estate for a long time. I mean, as a kid in WWE, making money that I'd never seen before in my life, I didn't have time to spend it. I literally was on the road 300 days of the year. I was on the road. So, him he basically we would do a lot of real estate investing, and that's what we've done over the year. And that's been a great foundation for us, moving forward. So yeah, at that point we used to say, he puts up the walls and I would paint them. So that's how I design, Mojo. So
I love it.
Fingers and stuff together in a long time. Of course, we've built our own homes. We've flipped a couple homes here and there. So that's always a fun process that we do together. And then now we're completely I have a nice team that kind of runs I have an office just about 15 minutes from my home, and I have a team in place that runs most of my stuff. And then Ron kind of does his thing, and I do my thing, and then we parent together. And now we Netflix together thanks to the pandemic, because we didn't really.
Yeah, you actually have some quality time together.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is so awesome. I love it. I love hearing that story. And part of my shows, I've been doing a lot of couples and bringing couples on, because it's so important, I think, to honor both parties of that relationship and what they've done together. So that's so fun to hear that. And I love that. So we're going to take a really quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about WWE and National Hall of Fame and all of the good things. So don't go away. We'll be right back after we hear from one of our sponsors. All right, so welcome back, everyone. You are listening and tuned in here to the Monica Brant Show, and I have got Trish Stratus on here with me, and we're sharing all the good things about her career, and it's been awesome hearing all of the things all the way up to now. And so, Trish, I've got something written down here, and I want to make sure that I say it correctly, because you have so much wonderful information, and you've done so much. You're so accomplished, and I've just really enjoyed hearing it. But I have this written down, so I want to make sure I say it right. So I'm going to read it. You were recently named #1 on the list of the WWE's greatest women wrestlers, and this year inducted into the National Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame as the first woman recipient of the Luthez Award. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, correct. Yes.
Oh my gosh, that is so much to say, and I wanted to make sure I said it correctly, because that just sounds like an honor. And first of all, I want to say congratulations for all that you've done. And of course, you are amazingly beautiful in aesthetics, and you've got a beautiful heart after just getting to hear all that you've done in your life, and being married 28 years, and the kids and all the business, and just where your heart is about helping other people. So I love your story, and I can't wait to hear more. And second of all, I wonder, have you actually pinched yourself telling yourself it's all real?
I know. It's like, you know what happens too, and you know, because your career has skyrocketed. Like,
It's okay.
come on now, Monica Brant. Monica Brant, wait, who sits behind 400 covers? But anyway, it happens so fast, and you're kind of like in this whirlwind that you can't see what you're creating almost, right? It's kind of like happening behind you, and you're like making role models over there. Like, you know what I mean? You're doing all this stuff behind you and like getting awards and things, but you're still focused on what you're doing. You're just still focusing on like the next thing almost, I think. And I think like for me, when I retired from wrestling was a chance for me to finally go like, oh, wow. Like, you know, like I retired in, so I made my debut in 2000 in wrestling. And I retired in 2006.
Was it really 2000? Because I want to kind of dive back into that. I know that we've got this huge humongous accomplishment in front of us with your inductee of Hall of Fame and all this. And I want to talk about that. But I'm really excited about hearing kind of that transition, because I know that had to be so critical. And I'll just say this very lightly. I had a few people that were talking to me about the wrestling because, you know, the women's thing wasn't really there and it was young and new. And I am, you know, hearing your background has answered some questions to me because we're both athletes, but as you know, athletes, there's different type of athletes. Like I'm the volleyball girl, not the basketball girl. Right. I'm the track person, but not the soccer person. But there's similar types of talents in each of those that fit, you know, obviously sprinting, you know, hitting a ball, getting a ball, but the volleyball and the track are not aggressive in front with someone personally. Yes. And those are the things for me. I was like, oh no, I cannot wrestle anyone. I don't know, you know, so like basketball, no way. I don't want soccer, like no way. I don't want to be, you can have the ball. I don't want it that bad, but you know, all day long I'll serve and spike and bump the ball. And all day long I will run a track meet and, you know, go against someone side by side. Yes. So I see now, because of you sharing your, you know, athletic history, well, at least it made me understand a little bit more how that wrestling thing. And if you were also, then you were talking about that you used to go watch wrestling. See, in my growing up years, I remember my brother and people watching wrestling. I was like, oh, that's, you know, I'm not going to watch that. I don't care about that. Yeah. So it's so interesting to see, you know, kind of, or hear about your background and how that really made sense for you to be in that industry.
That's kind of an enlightening moment you just created there, because I kind of never really put it together almost like that. But I'm like, yeah, oh, that makes sense. Because like a lot of people are like, wow, I would hear like, you know, she transitioned so easily into like, I was a natural, or, you know, they say things like that. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I think watching wrestling for so many years, like I knew how to do, I've body slammed my cousin before I body slammed.
See, I would never have touched anything like that. Like stay away.
On my aunt's bed. What do you mean?
That's so funny. I would never have even considered that would be something ever for me to do. But that's just, you know, those are just the personality traits coming out. And it's so cool because here you are, this type of athlete that's just for you. That's how you grew up. That's what you did.
And I was a goon. Like I called myself a goon on the soccer team. Like I would take people out. Like I would, you know, that slide. I would take people out. That was my style, you know.
And so, you still, you know, you still had probably that beautiful smile, and the girls probably all hated you because you were tough and you were good and you were probably beautiful. And they were probably all like, this Trish girl, I don't like her.
In
a good way, right?
We've all had a little bit of that along the way, I'm sure. But yeah, and even watching wrestling back in the day, it's funny because people are like, did you always know you want to be a wrestler? But there was no way I could have known I wanted to be a wrestler because there was no opening for what, right?
There wasn't, the women weren't, that wasn't a thing really. What, maybe they had, I don't know, did they even have, before you came in, did they have like their kind of their side, you know, arm candy? Yes. Did they have that going?
When I was a kid, it would be Miss Elizabeth. She was like, you know, Sherry Martel. She would wrestle, but you wouldn't see that role as much on the show, on the programming, right? And so Miss Elizabeth, you know, you'd look at her and she was so beautiful, and she wore gowns, and she, you know, she was this, you know, she was a sideshow. She was Macho Man.
The arm candy.
The eye candy, exactly. And so, yeah, so to watch it, no. But did I look at Macho Man Randy Savage and say, oh, I love that, the way he's working. I love that he's charismatic and entertaining and athletic at the same time. Wow, what an amazing combination. Yes, that definitely appealed to me and kind of resonated with me back in the day. So that always stuck with me. And then, of course, you know, seeing Hulkamania and like, you know, seeing just the crowd getting into it and the theatrics of it all was very appealing to me as well. So yeah, so that's interesting that you pointed that out. But I guess, yeah, being in and that like field hockey is a pretty aggressive sport as well.
Yeah. I would be like, okay, I'll sit on the sidelines and watch because that's too much in my face.
Yeah. Well, and so what happened was when so I guess I was on that show, tell you about off the record. I was on that show, and I was on as a fitness model where I'd be like, Trish Stratus is on the cover, blah blah blah, and then we would talk about. And the sport was a sports show, so they liked having this chick who was like their go-to guest, when they could have a chick on who spoke about sports.
Okay. Oh, you spoke about like all sports?
Yeah, so we talk about sports. It was generally a sports show, but we talk about issues and politics and stuff that was in sports.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, I became their go-to as like a chick who knew sports, which is not as common.
Was that just on air, or was it also visual too?
What do you mean?
Was it audio and visual, or was it just audio?
Yeah, it was a TV show.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, it was a TV show. But then the TV show had a really great relationship with the WWE. So like they would have wrestlers on. And so they would be, and it was one of the main like sports shows, I guess, across Canada. So as the Canadian talent, or the show was hosting in Toronto, they would have the talent on, just to be a part of the show, part of their media tour, things like that, promoting the events and things. So I remember I was on a show once with a wrestler. And then the big turning point for me was